Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody joining us today. My name is Mark O'Loughlin. I am the Managing Director of the CCC, the Cloud Credential Council. It's great to be here. Joining us on today's CCC Talks are members from the CCC Global Expert Panel. Now, as the name suggests, these folks are a panel of global experts who contribute to the CCC in various ways in the development, delivery, and the promotion of good practice for all things digital services and technologies. And that includes areas such as cloud, big data, IoT, blockchain, AI, and so forth. So it's great to have you all here on this session. I'm just going to ask you briefly to introduce yourselves for our listeners in about 30 seconds. From the top there, Jurian, I'll just over to you for 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you, Mark, for the introduction. Okay, Jurian Burgers. I am a cloud service management consultant for 3 days in a week, helping IT organizations go into the cloud and make the best out of it there. And 2 days in a week, I am a trainer for professional cloud service management and IT service management and IoT. So these three are the lines where I do training. And for 3 days in a week, I'm the consultant in the same field work. That's it, basically.
Fantastic. So right at the coal face there. Fantastic. Brian, again, briefly a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Brian O'Connor. I work for QA Training in the UK. My job title is Technical Team Lead and Principal Technologist, and I have responsibility for hybrid and multi-cloud environments and specialise actually in VMware.
Fantastic. And that hybrid word there, that might pop up in a few minutes. We'll see. Peter.
Hi, my name is Peter van Eyck, and about 10 years ago, we started the development of what's now called Cloud Technology Associate, or now it was called Cloud Essentials. Since then, I've built up a business as a cloud trainer, and I was probably one of the most experienced cloud trainers worldwide since then, focusing on cloud and cloud security. As of last month, I am a part-time associate professor at the University of Utrecht of Applied Sciences in, guess what, cybersecurity and cloud. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Peter. I had heard a notification of that. Congratulations on that appointment. I think they're in good hands there. I think so. Great. And Gary, yourself.
Good evening from Perth in Western Australia. My name is Gary Duffield. I work for an organisation called DDLS. We're also a learning partner. We are the only multi-cloud training provider in Australia, able to offer Google Cloud, AWS and Microsoft Cloud training, as well as the Cloud Credentials Council courses as well. We're also the largest ITIL provider. Cybersecurity is my current pet thing. I have a little mission to be the #1 cybersecurity provider in Asia.
Fantastic, fantastic. So best of luck with that. I'm sure you will achieve that. As we've heard some mention there of hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, a lot of this cyber, there's a lot of overlay there, even mention of ITIL. Sure, we might get onto some of that shortly. To kick things off in this session of CCC Talks, we're going to focus initially on the report we've just released. So our CCC Global Digital Skills Survey 2019. In there, we've identified 3 critical findings and also 8 supplemental findings as well. And they've looked at a broad spectrum, but we focused on areas we remember as C, I, and O: culture, individual, and organization, and the impact of all this technological change driven by cloud and then all these new cloud-based services. So I think with today's guest, we're going to look at some of these findings, explore them a little bit more, and see what insights we can glean. To open things up, the impact of change now, it's been driven by all this new IT technology cloud. We've seen this over the years, but there's an impact on the organization that then impacts people, that impacts culture. From your experiences with your organizations you're working with, how are you seeing that affect the people side of things within organizations? I think it's easier than ever before to adopt technology. With an ID and password, you can get into all sorts of software as a service, which is quite easy. But the impact of that trickling down either through the business or into the IT function, what we're seeing is an impact on people. Any comments on that from your experience, from what you're
Yeah,
seeing?
this is Brian here. So what we're seeing is that with people moving more towards cloud-based technologies, we're finding that a lot of people are resisting the change.
Okay,
So
yeah.
they're not wanting to store data in the cloud because they think it's unsecure. They're also finding as well, so like they're not sure if they're being spied on by senior management. So we're seeing that that's what we're seeing when we get people coming on our courses. It's the fear of change more than anything else.
Yeah, I think fear of change, but also I think, as you said in there, there's a trust element as well, I think, isn't there?
Yeah.
Do I trust this cloud or this software or this thing, first of all, from where data is stored? And I think ultimately, do I trust this will probably do what I'm doing today in the future? There's an element
Yeah.
there as well. We've got
Well, do we
onto
trust
robotics.
we've got the skills to do this brave new move over to the cloud? You know, if you think back 3 years ago, we were
Yeah.
all rushing out and getting our latest version of Windows Server. Well, yeah, I can tell you now, we haven't sat somebody on a Windows Server course in a very long time. Yeah,
Yeah.
that has sustained. I've worked in learning for 30 years, for QA with Brian back in the day, and now with
Yeah.
DDLS. You know,
Yeah.
Windows Server courses sustained. As soon as Novell disappeared, it sustained our business. Every 3 years, new version would come out. Da, 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 da,
Of
da.
course. Of
Well,
course.
well,
Yeah.
no, there aren't any new server courses, and the skills I've got, are they relevant? Do they work? Should I be going to the cloud? What is the cloud?
Yeah.
Will the cloud displace me? What skills do I actually need in this brave new world? So we've actually seen a tilting towards, I'll say, softer skills, where techies are not only getting the technical cloud skills, but also things like ITIL skills and cloud credential skills, just
Yeah.
because doing the Windows Server course, or in my day, the NetWare 3.12 course, that fulfilled and that provided all the
Yeah.
skills that you need. And you got 3 years life out of that. Well, those days are gone. You genuinely need a learning plan now, as opposed to sit on this course, see in 3 years.
I think that's fantastic, Gary, because that's one of the challenges in the organization when you go into the HR department or the learning and development department is do they even understand the impact where, to go to senior management, we need budget for learning plans for people.
No, they tend not to understand it. And the one big change that's come
Yeah.
out of that, and I don't know if Brian's got some commentary of the other guys, but we've seen in the Australian market a huge uptake on certification, the validation that you've actually got some skill. Hey, you're not going near my data center unless you've got the ticket. You're not going near the cloud unless you've got the piece of paper. When I arrived
Yeah.
in Australia 8 years ago, certification wasn't a thing. No, I
Yes.
actually cannot fulfill the demand for people doing exams. We don't make much money on it, to be fair. So,
Yeah.
there's only a finite number of seats that we want to have.
Yes.
But I have more supply than demand, more demand than, well, you know what I mean. I've got more people
Yeah.
wanting to do the certs. It's late. It's
Yeah.
nearly midnight in Australia.
That's
I mean,
okay. You
Yeah,
get a pass on that, Gary. Yeah, I think we get it. Yeah, I think that's very interesting.
I mean,
Peter,
from
can I
our
ask?
point of view on the server side of things, we're seeing very few people now coming on server courses, but we're seeing a lot of people coming on system center courses. So it's shifting from actually installing the operating system to actually managing the operating system and getting that return on investment.
Absolutely. One of the biggest things is a session I do myself, and I talk about where we're dismantling this IT factory that we've built over the last 20, 30 years, because we're not building a lot of the low-level infrastructure anymore. We're sitting things on infrastructure as a service and platforms and software like that, that we don't need to do that piece as much as we used to. We're not doing the build bit, but we're certainly doing the integration bit and the run bit a lot more and a lot differently as well.
yep.
Peter, from your perspective there as well, now I know you're new to university, but I'm also interested if you have any comment on how universities are looking at this change in the marketplace and change in people's requirement and skills, or are they, just in general sense, not necessarily your university,
Well,
do you think?
that's a bit of a harder question to answer right now because as I said, well, I didn't say that, but in line with what you're saying, the universities don't necessarily have a catch-up program for this. We're trying to find our way into that. The other side of my business is actually cloud and cloud security training, and from that perspective, I have a slightly more direct perspective on who's actually doing
Sure.
this stuff, and I see a couple of groups of people being involved in that. So architects and advanced developers really don't care too much about the skills because they pick them up as they go. However, they're not necessarily doing that in an optimal way. So we don't see those people much on the courses that I work on. What is a huge uptake on is across the board more risk assessment people who are suddenly being swamped with cloud stuff that they basically don't understand very well, and they also have to deal with the fact that even the IT guys who are supposed to understand this don't really understand that. So that's where there's a huge uptake of both introductory cloud stuff as well as more advanced cloud security stuff, and that really is stalling the enterprise. Now, the more advanced ones, some of my in my practice are like banks who are now running literally hundreds of DevOps teams that, from a security team assessment perspective, are basically clueless. And these people are trying to think of so the risk assessment teams are now thinking, how do we get these hundreds of the DevOps teams aligned towards the risk assessment that they should be doing? And they're devising complete training programs for that. But that's still pretty immature. And as far as I can see from a university perspective, we're there's just a couple of years of training that you can give people at a university, and we're just trying to get into the position where we can actually deliver people who are versed in that. It probably takes a little bit more than that. So it would be really cool to have some perspective of the other panelists on what really are the skills that are both required as well as in demand, which is not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah, okay, we'll come on to that. I think that's very interesting. To close off on the people side there, Jurian, from your experience with at the coalface, as you said, at customers as well, what are you seeing the impact? Some impact, no impact, big impact?
Oh, absolutely. Well, there's an interesting impact going on right now. I mean, that's on the service management field of work. At IT, we are always very good at covering up. And now we cannot do it anymore. We have to change. And what I see is that running practices are confronted with their own lack of control. They don't have proper control. They're used to cover it up. But nowadays, since we have to change our practices within change management, financial controls, etc., well, we need to open up and say, okay, we were not in control from a service management perspective, and we need to change this into cloud service management. So they have to open up, and from the ITIL guidance, like start where you are, well, this starting point is not always clear yet. So they have to do double work, do their proper configuration management, and then go to the cloud configurations. So that's also interesting to see IT organizations, they have to transform and, well, to open up their running practices again. Just to reinvent their processes.
Yeah, I won't get this right, but somebody said to me before, it's like we're on a ship in the middle of the ocean, the back of the ship's on fire as we're going forward. We've got to rebuild the ship as we're on the ship, trying to deal with the fire to end up with the new ship that will take us to...
All the holes and accidents that we have on the ship, we need to repair those as well as going new directions. So.
Yeah, and mind the icebergs as well. Fantastic. I think we've touched on a little bit of this, but one of the key, the critical findings from the CCC report, I'm glad we found this, is the challenge in organizations and for IT professionals is they don't know what they don't know. Yeah. Again, I think we'd be familiar with this, but to find it in a survey that we did was really, really good on one hand, because we can talk about it and try and help people understand what it means. But for organizations and individuals suffering from this, it's very difficult, because how do you fix behaviors and skills gaps when you don't know that you don't know you have them? I think, Do you see that as a big, well, I would imagine that you see that as a big problem out there, but is it one of the harder problems that we have? There's lots of, from a training perspective, upskilling, we said, is so vital at the moment, but if people don't know that they need this stuff, one of the examples I use is a thing called Cloud Challenge. Get 10 people, put them in a room, ask them 3 words, and you expose this. What are the 3 words? What is cloud?
What is cloud?
Or you could... Yeah, I love it, because you get 10 different answers until you can put the context. That's where the CCC comes in with the portfolio. We try and address that, but you could...
You can do it in 10 different answers. I think you're doing exceptionally well. I think if you ask the question, what's Microsoft Office? The answer is there's no such product. If you ask what Azure is, there's no such product. Those are just suites. AWS, they're just suites of other capabilities. So when you said you don't know what you don't know, again, I mean, I'm guilty of living in the past sometimes, but 2, 3, 4 years ago, nobody was talking about machine learning.
Yes.
Nobody was talking about AI. If you had networks, generally you've got an F drive and you're sharing a printer, and now we're talking about building, multimodal services in data centers on the other side of the world that are going to listen to videos, index it, and put closed captions on and let you search it in real time. Tilt, this is science fiction stuff. That wasn't stuff that we've prepared the generation of IT pros who are in the market today for. This is net new capability, net new skill. So not only do you not know what you don't know what there is to know, because there's just, and you don't need all of this stuff. It's the old, nobody uses more than 5% of PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, if at all.
How much of cloud are we using? Half the world doesn't know what Format Painter does. How much of cloud is baked in, and we're going, I didn't know it did that. Really, seriously? We can log in with our fingerprints, with our retinal scans or whatever. It's a brave new world.
It is what I'd like to think.
From a cloud point of view, is when people are coming on courses now and we're explaining them, things change by the minute.
Yes.
And they're coming in and say, why are you on the course? And they're, well, I don't know why I'm on the course. I just got sent on the course. And so, well, what are you going to use the cloud for? Well, we don't know what we're going to use the cloud for. That's down to the managers. So, and say hello to Yvonne there for us as well. So, but that's the sort of thing we're finding. People just don't realize how big the cloud is and what the cloud can be used for.
That's a big thing, yeah. And I think it's a big challenge for organizations, or as Gary's saying, the fear of, do we have to use it all? I think we're at the industry we're in at the moment is we at least should have in organizations and individuals a base level to understand what this stuff is. For example, Gary, you mentioned machine learning and AI. A big thing at the moment with AI as to what AI is actually today against what it's sold as. The stuff that's being sold under AI banner is like science fiction. The practicalities today is far from AI. I think it's a good marketing term. So if we understand at a base level the capabilities today of AI and machine learning and what robotic process automation really is, we'll probably do better things with it than this science fiction type view of these technologies, I think.
Well, that wasn't actually my wife that just wandered behind me. That was machine learning and AI in operation. And I'm not really here, but you're absolutely right. Where we are today against where we'll be tomorrow. I mean, our RPA, robotic process automation. It's like I started using that in routine conversation now. What even is it? Why do we need it? So it's not just in the skills of the people; it's in the skills of the people who are selling these solutions.
And then we get into that common language as even a base. And we had this with cloud for the last 10 years, everybody having different views. You pick up those magazines, sales brochures, everybody has a different understanding of what it is. So it's no wonder people are
as it should be, in a way, with any innovative development, you actually want to have different opinions and perspectives and views on what you want. However, of course, I'm guilty as charged. I have my own perspective on cloud, and it's pretty broad, I think. And this is what we get in all kinds of courses as the most immediate feedback is, oh boy, I didn't know it was this big. And maybe to drive the point home is that people say, let's move our stuff to the cloud, or let's move it back. That's another thing, that another idiotic idea that I hear a lot of times. Because what a lot of people fail to understand is that the cloud is what happens if you 10x or 100x all the IT that you have right now. And the only way to actually run that is to externalize it. And once you have like 100 times your current IT, then you'll pretty easily understand that there's no way that you can run that back in your data center again. It's that basic, and the fact that we're industrializing IT on an unprecedented scale is what a lot of people fail to understand, and then that's I guess one of the more fundamental things that people don't know. It's like stand back, Eve. I don't know how big this is going to be. It's IT on an unprecedented scale. That's totally impossible to run in your own data center, however big it is.
Yes, I love that phrase, industrializing IT. I think that's where we are. You've got this idea of commodity cloud, that kind of stuff, which is great. We've moved on, but it's not just cloud now. It's all the other technologies and services that are built on top of it. The industrialization of IT, that's a massive
Yeah.
change. Massive
Yeah.
Yeah,
change.
because I see this beyond the IT, of course. I mean, AI is in research for many, many years already. It's about the adopted technology that comes in. But to make this very good one-liner in the CCC courses, like even within the IT, we don't know what we don't know. And there was this phrase like, if cloud is an instrument, the DevOps engineer is the musician that plays it. So even I really love this
Yeah, that's a
one-liner in
nice one.
the course. I don't know who wrote it, but it's valid. Even within IT, we still are surprised by all the promises that it holds. And so
Yep.
Yeah.
the IT guys need to learn to play the new instrument, the new cloud as an instrument. The DevOps
I like I
engineers,
like I like that, Yuri, and I like that DevOps is the musician. So who's going to look to be the conductor? Will that be the service management folks or somebody else?
Well,
oh, absolutely. Yes,
I hope
they
it's
have the
I hope it's the
governance
business.
role. Yeah, it's the changing IT role. So there goes governance in place,
Yes.
Now,
which is also a new way of working, new way of acting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
And I
that's
like your
interesting.
DevOps point because I think it sort of also talks to one really common misunderstanding that cloud is about putting your stuff in somebody else's computer. DevOps, you can do DevOps on your own kit, but you have to adopt a cloud frame of mind to actually run DevOps. And then you'll find out that you have a choice whether to run it on your own kit or somewhere else. But
Yes.
so DevOps really fundamentally requires cloud characteristics. But then we're not necessarily talking about Amazon or Google to run that on. Although if you scale it up, then it will. But that's a different story.
Yeah. Yeah. And to finish that, I think what Yuri was saying, and to your point, Peter, that yeah, I think you're quite right. The business should be the conductor of this new music. My personal view is that the IT department or function should be part of that business group that's doing the conducting, not the other way around.
Yeah.
I think that that's a missed point at the moment, that are IT leading in this conversation in their organizations? Are they not? Um, what I see is that they still don't understand these technologies from a business perspective, from an as a service perspective, from all this change that we're talking about. They're still looking at it as technology, which I think isn't the right way to go about it today. Peter, you said it, we're industrializing IT. It's like the car. I have no idea how my car works, but I know how to drive it, and it gets me to places of value that mean something to me.
Yeah.
So
It's
I think
nice you
that's
use the car metaphor because one of the metaphors that I use for cloud is the car manufacturing industry, where like even a large car manufacturer doesn't even know the details of some of the technical components that are in there because they've outsourced it
yeah,
to some other company that does the detailed engineering production of that. 80% of the value of a car is not produced by the car manufacturer, but it's outsourced. And this is the way we develop IT, or we will be developing IT. And the IT department, if they're lucky, will be the 20%, and definitely not the 80%. But maybe if they're unlucky, then somebody else in the company will be the 20%, and they will be sort of
yes,
sidetracked into maintaining all legacy stuff, and then sort of grow old and die off and all that stuff.
Well, I hate
that's
to
it.
hate to make your metaphors, but
Yeah,
there are organisations who are kind of using Ubers rather than the carpools, and there are orchestras springing up in the sales
yeah,
department that we're blissfully unaware of. I forgot what
mm,
undercover IT I think they call it, don't they? Where the sales
yes,
department has gone off and deployed some marketing solution that's cloud based. They don't think of it as cloud. They think of it as the thing that they use to manage their customers. But the
yes,
Exactly.
reality
completely.
is it's a cloud based solution. And IT, hopefully they're on top of that, but they can be blissfully unaware.
Oh,
Yeah, and then,
we have a phrase for that. We call it disintermediation, bypassing the IT function
yeah,
to bring in,
yeah,
say SaaS, and then say in your case, Gary, the salespeople go down to IT and say make that work with single sign-on and security and all this other stuff.
if you're
Major
lucky.
IT headache. If you're lucky, yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be better for the IT function to say to sales, we have these 6 offerings that work with our systems that you can use. Which would you like? we've agreed to contracts and the terms and conditions. We know how it all works. We can integrate it, that kind of stuff. And here's the value. It may cost more, but we're not worried about cost. We're worried about value and what we get back from this, or how it drives and solves a sales problem.
But I think it goes full circle to what you said, which was, almost quite insightful. You should write it down. You need a T-shirt with "You don't know what you don't know." I have this conversation with my wife driving home from work all the time. She says, "Oh, we phoned our IT company because we need access to the F drive." And we can't open the Excel spreadsheet because 4 people working on it on the same time. It's like, why your IT department not talking about, even Microsoft Teams, where you can all be working on the Excel document at exactly the same time? So if business needs to know that it wants to change, the service providers need to know what those changes are, and those changes, because new technology has been released on a daily basis, nobody can ever know what there is to know. It's a never-ending story.
The rate of
Exactly.
change today is faster than at any time in the history of people on the planet. It's amazing. Leads us on to second finding. It's similar, but I want to hear your views on this. Second finding, critical finding we have is that organizations now require people and staff to have the ability to acquire new skills, not to necessarily have skills. They need them to have the ability, that's the word here, to acquire new skills. Be interested in your comments on that. Yeah, Peter.
An interesting thing is that IT people potentially have those skills if they are not sidetracked by their management. A couple of years ago, I was at a university hospital working around here, like 10,000 people work there. They talked to me about a report that they had on the change willingness of the staff, and we're talking about the entire university population here, working population. And as expected, when people get older, their willingness to change decreases, except for the IT people. And for the IT people, their willingness to change kind of remained constant. I don't know the exact numbers there. And then it said, well, to me, that's obvious. If you're 50, 55 and you're in IT, then you've survived like 6 generations of change already. And you can handle number 7 and 8 easily. And that's the new, that is the new normal in IT. It's only getting worse. And what we're now trying to do is at the university is to change our, or there's some parts of the university are doing that, the IT education that is, change that into, well, let's teach people how to acquire skills rather than cram the current generation of the current version of Windows into them or whatever it is. Of course, you still need to work with current technology, but these people should be more aware of the fact of how they learn, and in particular how they learn in teams, because that's another pet peeve that I have.
Who'd be helpful here would probably be Brian. I mean, Brian, from what I know of QA, you're doing apprenticeships at the grad entry level, on your way through to the guy
tell us
who
all
works
about it, Brian.
for Barclays Capital.
So QA as a company now, so we have QA apprenticeships. So we take people from school, from university, and we train them up on apprenticeships. So we're finding a lot of people are now doing digital marketing courses. A lot of people are doing cloud courses. We're doing very little on hardware and infrastructure now. So from that point of view, but what we do try to do with the apprenticeship side of things is we do try to get them to work together as teams. So because unfortunately young people coming into an IT industry seem to think that nobody in IT has got any communication skills, and the only skill they require is the ability to be able to look at the phone. So we do try to encourage them.
Right, that's why just as he says that.
Oh, yeah, there's nice phone, yeah. So that's what
I think that industry's changing.
Oh yeah, and what we'll also do as well as QA, we also have QA higher education. So we run the University of Northumbria, for example, in London. So we also do master's degrees in cloud computing and cybersecurity, and so like project management as well.
Weapons of mass distraction, isn't it? What's that? Social media. Yeah, they are.
So I mean, what we're trying to do with the young people is we're trying to teach them not just about the technologies that they're going to utilize, but how those technologies will be used in business.
Yeah.
I
think that's very interesting. It's not so much here's technology, here's how to use it. It's here's technology, what use will it be for the business?
Yeah.
To me, that's very interesting approach to take, because that's where this is all going. We've industrialized the technology. We don't need to learn the way we did years ago. As Gary says, nobody's coming in looking for server certifications and all that kind of stuff. But we do need to refocus, I think, looking at how does this technology help the business and how do we understand that? Typically in IT departments for the last 20 years, there's been lots of KPIs and measures and all sorts of things based on tickets and SLAs. The business couldn't care less about, to be honest, at the end of the day, or they're certainly not caring about it now. What they do care is, how do I use this technology for the business? Looking at revenue, time to market, maintaining market share, competitive advantage, or even just keeping up with a challenger that's using technology better than them to solve a smaller problem. I think that's going to be an interesting one going forward, Brian. I think teaching not even just the apprentices, but even, as Peter, you were saying, the older cohort uh, who have to change now to think about IT from a value perspective as opposed to the nuts and bolts of IT delivery. I think that's
if we come back to the apprenticeship side of things now as well, apprentices can now be up to the age really of 68, which is the retirement age in the UK with the apprenticeship levy.
Oh, really? I'm coming back. Sign me up.
Yeah, so yeah, put yourself across.
Just 1 second there, Urian. So, Brian, just finish on that. I think that's very interesting. That, again, in my head, I would have thought apprenticeships and younger people.
Yeah.
But you've just educated me there to say an apprentice is not age bound by any way,
not at all, no, not in the UK.
especially in this industry. Fantastic. Yes. So we learn that's my 1% learning today, Brian. Thank you.
No problem at all.
You're dying to get in there. Sorry, Urian, were you looking to pop in?
Yeah. Yes, I'm wondering regardless if it's older or the younger people, what happens if you don't have the ability to quickly adapt new skills? Not everybody is capable of quickly and agile adapting new ways of working. So are we losing a workforce of people who are not able to be very flexible in their way of learning?
I seem to get in a lot of Ubers where the people driving the Uber are ex-IT professionals. So maybe the answer to your question is they had to
they're the only ones who know how the app works.
Is that our career path? Is that what it is? I should be looking at getting an Uber account sometime soon. And
although there's a little flip in that's actually true. I do seem to get in a lot of Ubers where the individual driving is an IT pro.
So we are losing some of our IT specialists.
Yes.
That is it.
Now, what happens? I think we're in danger in that case of losing specialization quickly as well. I wouldn't be for that either. I think there is a balance to be found because a lot of these folks that have the specializations also know how to deal with risks and issues and challenges that your folks probably don't have or less experience have. And I think there's a challenge as well across the board in delayering still throughout IT and throughout the business. Again, that middle layer of management being whittled down just based on a cost perspective. Last year I spoke to Robert Shroud. I know he's no longer with us, but has fantastic insights on DevOps in the US. And he did a lot of research on this last year, and he was saying that what organizations were doing was, so they've heard of DevOps, they've read the Phoenix project, they're all now doing DevOps, just it's funny, Gary. And what they did was, so they hire lots of DevOps people with 5 or 6 or 7 years experience, which is nonsense to start with, and site reliability engineers, and they removed a lot of the service management layer from their organizations. This was across the US. And he said their strategy was, we'll put in the DevOps folks. We think they can make us agile. We'll take out the service management folks. We think they're a bit bureaucratic. And where there's gaps, we'll hire a few of the service management folks back. And that's their approach to it. Now, again, as I said to him, Robert, I don't think that's a good approach. And he said, Mark, I'm not here to say whether it is or it isn't. What I'm saying to you is it's what's happening. So I think there are those challenges in the organization, and I think it's very short-sighted. I'll move on to something else in a second, but one other thing about what we're doing in IT is British Airways last year had a bit of a, I think it was last year, had a bit of a problem. They couldn't get their planes out of Heathrow for 2 days because of an IT problem. couple of years before, the CIO that had come in, he was brought in, I think, in 2013, had made an announcement, really announcement to board of directors and shareholders that he was going to save money by cutting costs in IT, and he stripped out a lot of costs in IT. And what happens a couple of years later? They can't take off from Heathrow for 2 days, and it's cost them a lot more than what he saved. So this whole thing about reducing IT and the expertise at the moment, I think is wrong if it's cost-based. We really have to look at specialization. And again, not so much, I think we do require people to now have the ability to acquire skills, and we need to help those that can't or don't or won't, or we need to find places for them within the organization because they do have skills that are very relevant, probably not in these new areas that are coming out.
So
I
what
think
I
it's very
heard
challenging.
is that BA are cutting IT costs and they failed to get to the cloud.
And they had a massive PR disaster and they had massive fines. So yeah, it cost them a lot of money. One or two other points here I want to say. We found some challenges in organizations becoming more digitally enabled, let's say. And the report showed, I found this fascinating, that just under 50% when we added up the metrics said that problems were with people and management. So about 50% of challenges were related to people and management as opposed to technology. I think that's a very high number. So I think it is related back to some of the comments that you've made about the challenges with people. The technology is there. As Peter said, the industrialization of IT is very rampant. But in your experiences, very quickly, do you see that as well? Are we having a big people management problem? Now, not to go into what we're going to do for next year is to try and identify what those problems are a bit more specifically. But overall, I thought that was a change. Whereas previous years, it would have been the technology is the problem. It's very complex. It's very expensive. It's very this. We've all seen that. But it seems to be more people in management, and I think even management not understanding how to even manage people.
Well,
Any comments?
the cloud has
None of that is new.
the cloud has democratized IT in that, and in the sense that it's no longer expensive to spin up whatever IT service you wish. If I frame it in a positive way, is that for some of the workshops that I deliver, the biggest bang for the buck in companies seems to be to align the workforce around a common understanding of cloud as a concept, and that enables their teams to actually start talking about cloud in a more effective way, because everyone and his brother has a piece of the puzzle already. You just have to assume that in every company there's a ton of untapped potential even for change. And that the biggest challenge in the cloud and digitization era is to get to this new level of understanding that the cloud is a ecosystem of connected services, most of which are not run by you, and that the job of everyone is to extend to let go of the stuff that somebody else can do better, but then take on that service to the benefit of their own company, in which that company is unique, will be unique, and it does require and it actually essential to utilize the understanding that the people that already work there to leverage cloud capabilities to advance the company, but just don't get let go of some of your old control so that you can spend time on the new control.
I like that. We do have to let go of some of the old stuff, don't we? We do have to let go. Somebody else is looking after it. Doesn't mean we're not important. I think it means we're more important. We have to find it gives us a chance to go up what I call the value ladder in the organization. It's not IT making IT, it's IT doing a business view of IT, helping the business.
Sure.
I like that. Okay. One final thing to finish up on. Now, over the weekend, just this weekend, I've read two separate reports that came my way. First report says that there is a large global skill shortage in IT. Would you agree with that or disagree? We'll take that first of all. So do we have a skill shortage today, and where might that be? Or are we adequately skilled in the IT sector? What do you think, Bury and Brian? Do you have any view?
From my point of view, yes, I think there's a skills shortage. We're finding a lot of attacks, shall we say, on cyber. So cyber security is definitely a shortcoming.
That's massive,
So
yeah.
we're finding that we're not getting a lot of skilled cyber professionals coming through in order to protect the systems, and also as well with things moving towards the cloud now. There seems to be a bit of some companies backing off, thinking that the cloud will solve all problems. And trying to find cloud professionals at this point here and going, well, it's IT. Everybody should know about this, and they certainly don't. So we're finding that we're getting a massive uptake on cyber courses now and cloud courses. That seems to be our biggest market now. And as Gary mentioned before, we're doing very little on server infrastructure hardware.
So yes, because of the changing technologies, we're seeing that. Yuri, and yes, you're.
Yeah, of course, I'm in favor of the non-technical trainings, which really should have a takeoff. But going into technology training, I think there is a large adoption of the platform as a services and the underestimated value that it is within containers. It's also referred to this level as the containers as a service, as a synonym for platform as a service. And that really has a promise of being game-changing. It's so when you compare this to the infrastructure as a service and the dependency that you have on the data layer or the infrastructure layer, it can be mitigated by reinventing and redefining software and using platforms. So when you're looking at platform as a service, the containerization, containers, whether it's Kubernetes or all the others out there in Docker, they are really going to make a big change in the IT landscape and therefore in training. That's my idea from an IT perspective. Yeah.
And that's that skills gap there. Peter, very briefly from yourself, skills gap, again, you're in education in many different layers. You're seeing a big wide gap there, or even from the Netherlands?
Well, the interesting thing is that we have high-paying jobs around here, not like India or other outsourcing countries. Whenever I talk to somebody in the country and says, "Hey, I just have a part-time job at the university," one of the first comments is always, "Can I get some of your students?"
Fantastic. I'd say your students will be able to put an extra premium on their price there, Peter.
It's definitely when I mention the words cybersecurity and cloud, they say, "Okay, can I get some of your students?"
Fantastic, Gary. Sorry, Gary, down in your part of the world, down under there, what's it like from a skills perspective in the IT? Shortage or plenty of skills?
I mean, I think the fact that Australia paid to import me from the UK with my Novell CNE kind of suggests there is something of a skills shortage. But I actually I get on my high horse about this a little bit, because when we say skills shortage, we tend to think of people. And there is a requirement for more people. That the market in Australia does need more cybersecurity experts. But for me, when we talk about skills gaps and skills shortages, it's not just about net new people entering the industry. It's also about taking that person, me, the NetWare CNE, the guy who's been managing the Honeywell mainframes for the last 50 million years in a cave. It's about providing those individuals with the skills that they need to be relevant today. So it's taking those guys on that journey as well as bringing in those new people.
Yeah, I think it goes back to one of our earlier points there, the ability to acquire these skills, but also the ability for the organization to support the learning perspective. There's a report I read 2 weeks ago. I read a lot of reports, you can tell, and it was based in Ireland, and they found that 53% of people were paying for their own tech courses. Because employers weren't. I thought, this is madness. We have a skill shortage here, not just in people in numbers, but in what the people we have can do. Surely the employers should be part of the solution, or the employers, the governments and agencies.
And I'll repeat it again. You don't know what you don't know. We've got 150, 200 cloud cybersecurity courses, maybe more. There's several thousand. Having somebody who can curate that content, who can understand, Mark, you want to work in cloud. Tell me what it is you want to do. Tell me what your thinking is. Okay, in order to complete that journey, here's where you start. I don't know where you're going to end, because it's going to change, because it's going to take you a couple of years to get there. But at least let me and that's where organizations like QA and DDLS will come in the future, It's no longer you want a server course, here's a server course. It's let me understand that you want to be an XYZ, a cloud architect, a cybersecurity guru. Let us start you on that journey. Oh, you know nothing. Let's do some Network Plus or some Cloud Plus. Oh, I know absolutely nothing. Let's read a book, you know?
Yeah, I mean, from QA's point of view now, we don't sell training anymore, sell solutions.
Yeah, yeah. But I think a key thing there was learning paths now as to like with all this cloud just clicks together or interoperates. I think we need to do that now. It's not focused. One final thing to leave you with. I found another thing and I fished it out from a report.
A report.
Very
We've had a
cool.
report for a little while.
That's what I do at the weekend, you know, puts me to sleep. This one said a very, very big word was technology is not the problem today. Would you agree or disagree? We'll end on this one. Urian, we'll start at the top. Technology is not the problem. What do you
Definitely
think?
agree. People first. People and practices outside the IT department. That needs radical change. Yeah.
Fantastic. Radical change here. We're burning down the town. Brian, technology is not the problem. What do you say?
Yeah, technology is just a set of tools. It's the people that use the tools that are the problem.
Or the challenge again, but that's I understand. Peter,
workman never blames his tools.
Technology is not the problem. What do you say, Peter?
Well, technology is the wave that we all ride, and we should learn how to ride that wave. That's really the challenge, and especially this part of the world, we need to ride that wave with teams of people who can work like masterminds.
Fantastic. And Gary, final word to you there. You know, I'm going to ask. Technology is not the problem. What say you?
Final word. Well, I'm going to finish with a metaphor because it seems only right. You know, if
Fantastic.
And it's the orchestra. You know, I think if you think of technology as all the instruments that make up an orchestra, if we put all those instruments in a room, we're not going to get anywhere with them very quickly, unless you got the skills to, you know, basically pick up the fiddle and whatever you do with the fiddle, to pick up the trumpet and blow. You're never going to achieve. So, you know, technology is not the problem. It's understanding what you can do with it and how to fly that technology.
That's fantastic. Gary, we're going to leave it on those fine words. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today on this session of CCC Talks. Big thank you to Urian, Brian, Peter, and Gary. We'll end today's session. Thank you for joining, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mark.
Good night. Bye.
Goodbye, everybody. Bye.